You don't have a business card?
I'd say there's some progress on the costs, but the important thing is that balance a budget and we make the cuts that are necessary. And if the cuts that are necessary are not made, then I'm going to do an emergency appropriations until this budget is passed.
I was told by the majority leader that he feels like there is going to be a shutdown, that progress is being made. Would you agree with that?
Well, the world loves optimists, but I tend to be satisfied when agreements are made and not in anticipation of them. I've been hearing that for about 3 weeks, that an agreement is imminent, and one of these times they'll be right. But until then, I'm just going to insist that we make the reductions so that we're not back in November closing a deficit that arises from the fact that we didn't cut enough now. That's what happened to us last year. The legislature came up $750 million short, and I had to delay payments to school districts, local governments, not-for-profits. All of them got very upset. Some of them sued me. The reason it all happened is because we didn't balance the budget. We're going to balance the budget this time, and we're not leaving until we do. And if it's not done in the conventional way, we will use emergency appropriations to make sure that it's accomplished.
I read some of your earlier language where you said that a shutdown would lead to chaos.
No, full ramifications of a shutdown of government are unimaginable to people. No one really knows what happens when people who guard prisoners can't come to work, when police and firefighters and emergency service workers in the state can't be paid. You don't even have the resources to get gasoline for the state cars. That sounds chaotic to me.
The governor, isn't it true?
Agencies are going to be affected. Are you advising them of what the possibility of a shutdown could mean to them?
Yes, we're talking to the agencies about a plan as to how to try to carry on government when you don't have any resources.
Yeah.
It's a very unfortunate circumstance that we have to come to this, but I waited 2 months before I did it. I gave everyone 60 days to reach the type of agreement that I think in these tough times is difficult but necessary. That didn't happen, and so at that point I felt the need to act on behalf of the people of the state of New York.
We saw that you gave a big hug to Senator Diaz. Gary told me that you have a revolver against your head. I mean, what does that mean?
He told you I have a revolver against his head?
Because he's not going to approve a budget that's going to mean more cuts for his people, for the people who voted for him.
Well, I respect Senator Diaz, and in the end, I agree with him. These cuts are difficult. I can see why people want to vote against them. I have a great amount of sensitivity for these issues myself. But the issue I'm trying to get Senator Diaz to look at is the fact that if the state runs out of money, if the state becomes insolvent, that the problems for the same people that he's trying to protect are going to be even more grave than they are now. But, you know, I understand that people feel this way, but the reality is that this time we can't keep waiting forever, feeling that the day of reckoning never comes. The day of reckoning has come, because if we don't get this budget balanced, the circumstances are going to be far worse than they are now.
Governor, isn't it true, though, that under Pataki and Cuomo, budgets have always been late? I mean, it's not an unprecedented thing to have a late budget. Is it not true?
It is not true, because under Pataki and Cuomo, the state never ran out of money. The state ran out of money in December, and I had to close the deficit with $750 million that I withheld from local governments and schools and not-for-profits. The state ran out of money again in March. This time I had to hold back $2.1 billion to school districts around the state, and the state ran out of money just 2 weeks ago on May 31st, and again I've had to delay $1.5 billion to $2 billion that is owed to groups because the state can't pay them. So we are in far worse circumstances than we ever were under Governor Pataki and Governor Cuomo. So it's not that the budget is late, it's that we're nearing the end of our resources. We're living on the margin of our means. Yeah. And if somebody doesn't stand up and do something about it, we'll all be sorry that it happened.
But doesn't it fray the Constitution to be borrowing on the side instead of just coming together, the leaders of the legislative leadership, to balance the budget instead of just borrowing weekly?
Who's borrowing on the side?
Well, the government is.
The government is not borrowing on the side.
You're saying that they're not borrowing?
The government is not borrowing on the side. What we've done right now is we've delayed payments. We didn't borrow any money to pay the debt at the end of May. And in addition to that, what we are doing is perfectly legal. It's from legislation passed 30 years ago, where the governor has the right to enter into the emergency appropriations what the governor sees fit to make government work, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And I've already exacted over 20% of the inevitable cuts that we need, and I'm going to keep going because it's the only way we're going to reach a solution. Otherwise, the state risks becoming insolvent because every day we waste, we're cramming the deficit into a shorter period of time.
What is the worst case scenario if the state does go bankrupt, Governor?
Well, the state doesn't go bankrupt because under the Constitution, the state always has the power to tax or borrow to not become officially bankrupt. But the state can become insolvent, meaning that the state has less money than it has debt. And this is right where New York is headed. And the only way to avoid it is someone's going to have to take some extraordinary action because the legislature has not. And I'm willing to take that action. I respect some of the very courageous members of the legislature, like Senator Diaz, who really feel for those who are going to endure the cuts. But what I'm trying to assure Senator Diaz and others who feel like he does is the fact that at this point, let's remember that the issues are so great that the pain that people are going to achieve will be worse if we don't act than if we do. And the reality is, unlike other budget deficit reduction plans, we have spread the pain. Our citizens who make $500,000 or $1 million are paying stiffer taxes right now to share in that sacrifice. We're all going to have to share in it with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.